Hi, my name is Louise Bate and I'm an Associate Solicitor in the Commercial Property team at Thackeray Williams LLP. This is the first part of our Energy Efficiency in Commercial Property Transactions series. The second part will consider the concept of something called green leases. In this podcast, I'll be talking about something called the Minimum Energy Efficiency Standards, or MEES for short. MEES have been in place since 2018 as part of the government's carbon reduction strategy. The MEES regulations and guidance are complex, and there are different rules for domestic and commercial lettings, although this podcast will focus on commercial lettings. Since 2018, it has been illegal to grant a new lease of a commercial property that has an energy performance rating of F or G, unless you can show an exemption exists. However, from next month, the 1st of April 2023, it will now be unlawful for a landlord to continue to let commercial premises with an energy performance rating of F or G, unless a valid exemption exists. So what does this mean in practice? Any landlord with a commercial property will need to ask themselves the following questions to determine whether the MEES regulations apply. Firstly, does the property have an Energy Performance Certificate, or EPC? Some types of properties, such as industrial sites, workshops, or non-residential agricultural buildings with low energy demands, are exempt from the EPC regime. The MEES prohibition on lettings only applies where there is a requirement for an EPC. Secondly, how long is the proposed letting? Short tenancies for less than 6 months will not be caught by MEES unless the lease allows a renewal or extension, or if the tenant has already been in continuous occupation for more than 12 months. Long leases for 99 years or more are also outside the scope of the MEES regulations. Thirdly, is the property itself exempt? The regulations list a number of types of property not caught by MEES, including small standalone buildings and buildings which are to be demolished. The position in relation to listed buildings is uncertain. It seems that they are intended to be exempt, but the precise wording of the rules and guidance leaves some room for doubt. We will be able to advise on whether an exemption applies to your property. All exemptions must be registered, and once registration has taken place, an exemption will be valid for the next 5 years. Fourthly, does MEES apply when I am granting a renewal lease and there is no existing EPC? Under the Energy Performance of Buildings England and Wales Regulations 2012, there is an obligation to provide an EPC when selling or renting out property, and a subsequent government guidance note in 2017 confirmed that selling or renting out does not include a renewal lease. In contrast, MEES seems to say the opposite. MEES prohibits the letting of a substandard commercial property as a result of an extension or renewal, and the MEES guidance note suggests that if there is no valid EPC, a new EPC would be required on a renewal lease to a current tenant. We would recommend, therefore, that it would be prudent to follow the most recent regulations and obtain an EPC on a lease renewal where no EPC currently exists. What are the consequences where MEES applies? Where you have a non-exempt F or G rated property that you would like to let out, you will need to take steps to increase the property's energy efficiency rating to at least a grade E, and this will also apply to existing lettings from the 1st of April. Failure to do this will not affect the validity of the lease, but it will expose you to the possibility of a significant financial penalty. You would be subject to potential fines of between £5,000 to £150,000, depending on the value of the property and how long it takes for you to acknowledge your failure and take steps to address it. Failure to comply with the regulations will also be published, which means a breach of MEES could cause damage to your reputation as well. Are there any other future issues to be aware of? The regulations so far have all been about ensuring properties are at least an E rating. However, the government has consulted on plans to raise the minimum standard from E to C by 2027 and then to B by 2030. So our advice to our landlord clients is that it would be prudent for you to start thinking about the energy efficiency of your buildings now to ensure that you are ready. This includes 1. Consider whether any of the commercial properties in your portfolios have an EPC rating of F or G. 2. Identify any works and associated costs that are needed to bring those properties up to standard. 3. Consider how responsibility for compliance with MEES or necessary works is apportioned